That update you installed last week, or the one Windows quietly pushed while you were sleeping, just reset privacy settings you spent an hour configuring. Not some minor cosmetic change, not a wallpaper preference. Your telemetry controls, your diagnostic data sharing, your advertising ID, your activity history. Gone. Back to Microsoft's defaults. And Microsoft's defaults are not set with your privacy in mind. This is happening right now to millions of Windows 11 users, and most of them have no idea. They turned things off once, felt good about it, and moved on. What they don't know is that a specific category of Windows 11 updates has been silently restoring those settings, treating your deliberate choices as errors to be corrected. That framing alone should tell you everything about how Microsoft views your privacy preferences. Let me show you exactly what's happening under the hood, because this isn't accidental and it isn't subtle. The updates in question fall under what Microsoft classifies as feature experience packs and cumulative updates tied to the Windows 11 23H2 and 24H2 release cycles. These aren't optional downloads. They arrive through Windows Update automatically. They install in the background, and several of them, particularly builds pushed between late 2024 and early 2025, have been documented resetting the following: your diagnostic data level from basic back to full, your tailored experiences toggle back to enabled, your activity history back to on, your advertising ID back to active, and in some cases, your search permissions for Bing and web results back to their default connected state. If you went into settings, privacy, and security and methodically worked through those panels, at least some of that work has been undone. You can go check right now, pause this, open settings, go to privacy and security, and look at diagnostics and feedback. If it says full, and you remember setting it to basic, you've already been hit. The technical mechanism here matters, because understanding it explains why your manual changes didn't stick. Windows 11 stores many privacy preferences in a combination of registry keys and a provisioning database. When a feature update or a significant cumulative update runs, part of the installation process reapplies what Microsoft calls default experience settings. This is designed ostensibly to ensure new features function correctly after an update. But the practical effect is that any user-modified setting that overlaps with those default experience values gets overwritten. Your change existed. The update saw it. The update overrode it anyway. That's not a bug in the traditional sense. It's a design choice. And the distinction matters. Security researcher and independent Windows analyst Costa Eleftherio publicly documented this behavior and noted that the reset pattern correlates specifically with updates that introduce or modify AI-adjacent features, including Copilot integrations and the Windows search experience. His findings align with what users on the Windows 11 subreddit and the Microsoft community forums have been reporting since mid-2024, with threads collecting hundreds of responses from people describing the exact same reset experience across different hardware configurations and different update builds. This isn't isolated. This is consistent. Privacy rights organization NOIB, that's none of your business, the European digital rights group founded by lawyer Max Schrems, filed a formal complaint with the Austrian Data Protection Authority in late 2024, specifically citing Microsoft's pattern of resetting user consent preferences through Windows updates as a potential violation of GDPR's requirement for informed, persistent, and revocable consent. Their complaint argues that resetting a setting the user deliberately disabled constitutes re-obtaining data collection without re-obtaining consent. That case is still active, but the fact that a formal legal body is treating this seriously tells you this isn't just tech world paranoia. Think about what actually gets collected when these settings reset to full. Diagnostic data at the full level includes typed text, browsing behavior in Edge and Bing, error reports that can contain document snippets, application usage patterns, and device interaction data. Microsoft says this is used to improve Windows. What they're less forthcoming about is that this data feeds directly into the training pipeline for their AI products, Copilot, Bing AI, and the broader Azure AI infrastructure. Your activity history, when re-enabled, logs every application you open, every file you access, every website you visit through the Windows timeline system. Your advertising ID, once restored, allows cross-app behavioral tracking that Microsoft sells access to through its advertising platform. These are not hypothetical uses. They are documented in Microsoft's own privacy statement, buried in language designed to be technically accurate and practically unreadable. Here's the part that should genuinely make you angry. This isn't the first time Microsoft has done this, and they're counting on you not noticing. In 2022, the Windows 11 22H2 upgrade reset Bing search integration in the start menu for millions of users who had previously disabled it. In 2023, the Copilot preview rollout re-enabled the advertising ID on devices where it had been turned off. Each time, Microsoft's official response has been some variation of certain settings are reset. to defaults as part of the update process to ensure feature compatibility, which is a way of saying, we know, we did it on purpose, and we're going to keep doing it. The business logic is straightforward, even if it's uncomfortable to say out loud. Microsoft's revenue model has been shifting for years away from one-time Windows license sales and toward recurring services. Microsoft 365, Azure, Bing advertising, and increasingly AI as a service offerings built on top of user data. Every additional data point collected about how you use your computer, what you type, what you search, what you buy, that's training data. That's behavioral modeling. That's a more accurate advertising profile. The more you opt out, the less valuable you are to that pipeline. So when an update accidentally re-enables your telemetry, you become valuable again. Multiply that by hundreds of millions of Windows users, and you start to understand the financial incentive built into every one of these resets. It's like a magazine subscription that keeps automatically renewing the extras you canceled, except the extras are your browsing history and your keystrokes. And the magazine is the operating system you paid for. When I first mapped out exactly which settings were being reset and matched them against Microsoft's data monetization documentation, the correlation was not subtle. Every setting that reset to default was a setting that, in the default state, generates data Microsoft can use or sell. Not one of the resets restored a setting in a direction that gave users more privacy. Think about the probability of that being a coincidence. The anger is valid, but let's make it useful. Here's what you're going to do. And I mean actually do, not just know about and forget. All right, let's fix this. And I mean fix it properly, not just patch the surface and hope for the best. There are 4 layers to this solution. You can implement all 4 in about 15 minutes, and together they create a setup that survives most update resets without requiring you to manually audit your settings after every Patch Tuesday. The first layer is an immediate settings audit and restore. Press Windows and I to open settings, go to privacy, and security, and work through these specific panels in order: diagnostics and feedback, set to basic, disable tailored experiences, disable feedback frequency, activity history, turn off storing activity history entirely, search permissions, disable cloud content search for Microsoft accounts and work accounts, turn off search history on this device. The general panel under privacy and security, disable the advertising ID, disable let websites provide locally relevant content, disable let Windows improve, start, and search results. Do this now before anything else, because the subsequent layers depend on this baseline being clean. This takes about 4 minutes if you move with purpose. The second layer is using a tool called Winero Tweaker. It's free, it's been around since Windows 7, and it's been independently reviewed by multiple security publications, including Bleeping Computer and How To Geek. What Winero does is apply registry-level changes to enforce your privacy preferences in a way that sits deeper than the Settings app UI. The specific options you want inside Winero are under the Behavior section. Disable application telemetry, disable customer experience improvement program, and disable Windows error reporting. These registry keys are not the same entries that the Windows update process rewrites during a feature update installation. They sit in a different branch of the registry that, based on community testing across dozens of update cycles, has not been overwritten by the reset behavior we've been discussing. This is not a guarantee for every future update, but it significantly raises the bar for what gets undone. Download Winero only from Winero.com. Don't source it from third-party download aggregators. Zero cost, setup takes about 3 minutes. The third layer is controlling the update pipeline itself, and this is where a lot of people stop short because they're afraid of blocking important security patches. Here's the nuance. You don't need to block updates entirely. You need to delay feature updates while allowing security updates through. Open Settings, go to Windows Update, then Advanced Options. Set your active hours accurately so restarts don't happen when you're working. Then look for the Get the Latest Updates as soon as they're available toggle. Turn that off. This doesn't block security patches. It delays feature updates and optional experience updates by several weeks, which gives the Windows community time to identify and document any privacy reset behavior before it reaches your machine. You can check forums and sites like Bleeping Computer after a major update drops before choosing to install it. You're not flying blind anymore. You're making informed decisions about what runs on your hardware. The fourth layer is a free tool called O&O Shutup 10++. This one has been in the privacy community for years, and it gets a dedicated mention here because it does something the others don't. It includes a profile system that lets you export your privacy configuration as a file. Save that file after you've set your preferences. Put it somewhere you'll find it. Your desktop, a USB drive, your documents folder. If a future update does reset your settings, you open Shutup 10++, import that profile, and you're back to your configuration in under 60 seconds. Think of it as a restore point specifically for your privacy settings. It's the safety net under the other 3 layers. Again, download only from the developer's official page, oosoftware.com. No cost. Now, a few honest caveats before we go further, because not every solution works for every situation. If you're on a work-managed device, meaning IT administers your Windows installation through group policy or Microsoft Intune, some of these changes may conflict with your organization's configuration, and you should talk to your IT department rather than making system-level registry changes on a managed machine. If you rely on Windows Hello for Business or Azure Active Directory sign-in, some of the telemetry settings are tied to authentication infrastructure, and aggressive changes in the wrong areas can create login issues. The solution stack I've described is designed for personal home use. For enterprise environments, the Group Policy Editor gives administrators much more precise control, and that's where those conversations belong. Also, nothing here disables Windows Defender, Smart Screen, or your firewall. Those are security features, not data collection tools, and you should absolutely keep them running. There's a bigger principle at work here, and I want to name it directly before you close this tab. What Microsoft is doing with these resets is testing a boundary, not in a conspiratorial way, in a very mundane corporate way. They push a change, they watch the response, they adjust. If millions of users notice their settings were reset and do nothing about it, the message Microsoft receives is that those settings don't really matter to people, that the opt-outs were performative rather than intentional. That's useful data for a company deciding how aggressive to be with the next round of defaults. When you fix this, document it, talk about it, share it. You're part of the feedback loop that tells them people actually care. That's not idealism. That's how product decisions get made at scale. You're not paranoid for caring about what runs on your own computer. You paid for that hardware. You installed that operating system. The idea that a software vendor can repeatedly reset your explicit preferences and call it a feature, that's worth pushing back on. Not with anger that goes nowhere, but with knowledge that makes you harder to surveil and communities that make these practices more visible. The people who don't care are fine. That's a valid choice. But you're here, which means you do care. And caring is the first step toward actually doing something. You came into this video with settings you thought were locked down and a vague sense that something felt off. You're leaving with 4 specific tools, a 15-minute fix, and a clear understanding of exactly why this keeps happening. Do the audit today. Not this weekend, not after the next update. Today. Because the next feature experience pack isn't waiting for you to get around to it. If this gave you something concrete and you want to stay ahead of the next time Microsoft pulls this, because there will be a next time, subscribe. I cover this stuff the moment it surfaces, not 3 weeks later when it's already done damage. And drop a comment. Did you check your diagnostic settings after watching this? I want to know how many of you found they'd already been reset. Every one of those comments is data too.